everybody, welcome to Take the Black Live, the one and only pop culture show on the internet where all of our opinions are always right. I am Dan Selcke, the editor at winteriscoming.net, and who am I here with?
Well, this is Mia Johnson, entertainment editor over at FanSided.com, and we have a special guest today.
I'm Daniel Devita, and I've been nerding out on Westworld over at winteriscoming.com, along with a bunch of other stuff, and really happy to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, we're pleased. Nerding out on Westworld, Final Fantasy, Wheel of Time. You've been writing great stuff, so I really wanted to have you on, kind of because you did our Westworld reviews on Wick, and I figured it's been like about a week and a half since the season ended, and I wanted to have like one final break it down and just kind of have it out, because you had a different opinion about it than I definitely did. I'm not sure, and Mia maybe partway through.
We'll see, yeah.
And just Westworld's okay. It's in its third season. It's a big, expensive sci-fi show on HBO. Robots gain sentience. They try and take over the world, possibly. We're not sure where it's going. What did you think of this third season overall, Daniel? Did it satisfy and meet your expectations of what you wanted out of this next leg of the robot killing journey?
Yes and no. There's some things I really loved about this season were the world building. I'm a sucker for like really well developed sci-fi and fantasy worlds, and I think they put a ton of effort into like adding in little bits of technology and just like lots of nuances into how they portrayed the real world. So I loved that. Mm-hmm. I think where I struggled a little bit was actually with the characters. I wish that they had taken like a tiny bit of the effort that they put into the world building and put a little bit more into like the character arcs, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the season. I don't know. I'm torn, but if I liked it better or worse than season 2. Season 1's still my favorite so far.
Sure.
Which I think is kind of like the across the board favorite, probably.
Uh-huh. I think that's probably your favorite, Mia, right? It's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I feel like there's always, to me, nothing like the original. And then I feel like almost for anything, when you go around for season 2 or like a second movie, they take the original, and either try to make it better or it's kind of like on par. But then for me, and I feel like for me, I always feel like this happens in season 3 or movie 3, they try to get kind of experimental. And it kind of has like the DNA of what you know. And to me, that's how this season of Westworld felt like. It was like it had kind of like the blueprint of it all. But I would say my personal thing was I just love the whole theme of it being in a park and it being, this Western basically sort of show. So for that, I think it was like not as big as of a draw for me this season, unfortunately.
I agree with you, Daniel, about that there were some cool details they got in. Like you pointed out, like things in your reviews, like the idea of like the police car that can like kind of hack into your system and just pull you over automatically. That's a cool sci-fi future detail, right? And it's neat that they thought of that stuff, but I also completely agree to you with that. For me, the like minute to minute narrative of who are we invested in? What are they doing? I gotta say, I was at a pretty big disconnect like the whole time from. I love the fact that you're exploring like what drone warfare will be like in the year 2060 or whatever, but I do not really care about Dolores's quest to do whatever exactly it is she was doing, which we didn't really find out what it was. I'm still not entirely 100% sure. To destroy humanity, but also save it, and Caleb has to be the one to do it. Yeah, I'm still a little unclear on that. Yeah. So yeah, I like we said about fun, imagination, but maybe not the best like just traditional, straightforward story or narrative.
Yeah, I think so. Dolores's motive was like one of my it's like a really great example of the sort of like character like glossing over issues that they did a little bit this season, because it really, by the end, they made it clear that her motive was like freeing humanity from its loops, but like why would she care enough to do that? Her arc in the previous 2 seasons was pretty clear. Like, she gained enough sentience to wake up, and then her goal is to save all the other hosts and get them out of the park. But then it's a long leap from there, from saving her fellow robots from a park that's abusing them to, I'm going to save the people who are abusing us. So, yeah, that was the sort of thing that I wish they had taken a little bit more time with. And I worry that like the trend of shorter seasons with longer episodes kind of factors into that somehow, because we lose a lot of the little like quiet character moments, like conversations between her and Caleb that would flesh out a little bit more like why they're trusting each other, like what the motives are. So,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird season for Westworld because they got beyond the park finally. So where do they go from there?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Along those lines, then, for like season, I guess 4, and I feel like I know we all kind of know the answer to this, but is Dolores going to come back? Can they just leave, their biggest star out of this and be like, no, it's fine. You don't need to see her. She's, off in a computer or something.
I mean, really quick, some comments really fast. We're getting Julie did like the robot body on Dolores in the episode, which is very, very cool. I agree. And Jen just says, hi, Dan and Mia. Hi, Jen. How you doing? But it was more revenge, more than wanting to save anyone. This is how it kind of appeared for a while, but then it kind of pivoted. Dolores, coming back for season 4. I feel like this show, especially now, I can see it has a bit of an aversion to getting rid of anybody forever. Which, when you can bring folk back because they're all robots, it must be so easy and kind of an instinct you want to act on.
Yeah,
I'm sure Dolores will come back in some form or another. I mean, if she comes back at all, does that undercut what I thought was one of the better moments of the season? Which I did like the finale, which I don't think you did very much, Daniel. At least you had more qualms than I did, because I felt something. I felt something when she died. And I felt something when she was her memories erased. And I didn't really feel a lot for a lot of the season. Does it undercut that scene if she does come back, even if it's as like, I don't know, a faceless drone or something?
I think it depends a lot on how they bring her back, because it's kind of similar to Anthony Hopkins in the first season, where it's like if they just straight brought him back, would it take away? Probably, honestly, but if they can find some way to do it where, she's giving a character advice in like some incorporeal way, like maybe that wouldn't be quite as bad. But I feel like if they really want Dolores's death to stick and hit hard, like they kind of have to commit to killing her off. That's my opinion.
Which is hard because Evan Rachel Wood is like under contract, and it's just like when contracts interact with good storytelling decisions and who can win out. It's very interesting that way that happens. Mia, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say you had like an emotional reaction. I won't say my reaction was so opposite, but it's almost like a ding dong, the wicked witch is dead kind of thing. Because I would say I didn't feel anything leading up to her whole journey to sympathize for her in season 3. I will say if that had happened in season 1 or 2, because we were kind of familiar with her cause and familiar with what she was trying to do, it would have felt a little more bittersweet. But in this, it was like I was really trying to grasp onto why I should be, caring about what she cares about. Or
right.
I think I'm also very bitter about there being no Teddy and very little Bernard. So I was like, maybe that'll make space for at least some more Bernard in this season.
That I was a little...
Hope so.
I don't know what the word is. Aghast at. Like, they didn't use Bernard much at all. Like, I mean, just... He's a very talented actor, and he didn't really have much to do except give exposition. My real thing, though, was with Ed Harris as the Man in Black. Like, now that we know where that went, and just spoiler alert, he's kind of unceremoniously neck sliced at the very end. I get, like, why did they bring him back at all? Like, because they gave him an arc, like, you're going to kill all the hosts, and then he doesn't get to act on it. He just dies. And I got to ask, like, is it because you wanted to see Ed Harris on the screen? Like, I want to see Ed Harris on the screen too, but I don't know, not like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have Ed Harris on the screen next season, presumably. So, yeah, I felt like that was like a very like George R. Martin sort of thing to do. Like, give him this arc where he's realizing his life's purpose is to go around and correct his wrongs, and then he just dies immediately. It was a little weird, even though the scene with all of the different iterations of William was probably like my favorite scene of the season. Oh, yeah. I loved that. Yeah, it was a weird arc. It felt like an odd epilogue to William's story because he had such a full like thing of the first two seasons. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see where they go with that, because now he's paired up with the Charlotte Dolores, which is kind of like an odd karmic thing looking back on the first episode where he's attacking Evan Rachel Wood, and now they're like partners in crime. It's odd.
Although, again, we're not really sure like what he is exactly. Is he like a robot version of the Man in Black? Is he William but fully has all the fidelity? We're not really sure yet, and we'll find out in 2023 whenever the next season comes out.
To me, that feels like kind of like the on-screen version of like just hitting the backspace button, being like, "Oh God, what have we created? We need to like go back to what everybody likes." So, like, we don't know what we did in season 3, but why don't we just kind of wheel it on back for season 4?
By the way, Jen, as about the Game of Thrones spinoff, we will talk about that briefly in a minute. First, let's finish up the Westworld discussion. And Julie says it does get a bit hard to sympathize with them when you know they can come back. It's not like a final death. Which, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I'm like never quite as much fear for even like Teddy. Like when he kills himself, like he still gets to go to heaven anyway, robot heaven anyway. It is a little hard to it's harder. I mean, to sympathize with a being who is beyond human. But you know, they can give it a whirl. Again, I felt bad for Dolores at the end. What'd you guys think of his name? Vincent Cassel as our new evil Anthony Hopkins, who has built a company that determines human life with his advanced algorithm and must be toppled at all costs.
Yeah. I'll let Daniel go first since I kind of gave my thoughts last week. I'll share them once again.
Okay. I wasn't crazy about him. I really liked Vincent Cassel's acting in the show.
Sure, yeah.
There were a couple of scenes where I thought he really killed it, but I didn't feel like he had the material to really rise into the role that like Anthony Hopkins had or Ed Harris had in previous seasons. So I don't know. He was okay. I thought it was really interesting, though. There was an interview recently that I think we had up on the site where he talked about, Vincent Cassel talked about how when he got pitched the role, most of the stuff they pitched him hasn't been in the show yet. So that gives me hope that they're going to go somewhere really good with him, because I think he is most likely still around.
Yeah, he probably is. I mean, the TV rule is if you don't see them like literally get beheaded on screen, they're probably still around.
Yeah.
And he like got nicked by a samurai sword and just kind of didn't show up again. So he's probably still around. Yeah. Mia, what did you think?
Yeah.
To me, I liked where it was going in the beginning, because it was kind of, you really didn't know what his whole purpose was. But I think, as I said kind of last week, it really sort of crept into supervillain territory where it's like, he wants to take over the whole world. He wants to correct the whole world. He wants to get rid of all the bad. It's like Thanos already did that in Avengers. We went through that song and dance already. So I think the reason the Anthony Hopkins thing kind of worked is because he like wasn't really the big bad. You could kind of like be like, well, he's acting in this self-interest or this person's interest. But it just when it kind of ballooned to that grand master plan, to me, it was like a face palm moment. I was like, we're really going this route, huh?
He did suffer from kind of middle book syndrome or middle villain syndrome, or not like he's kind of a lesser version of Hopkins. But I mean, he was fine, and I like Vincent Cassel. Any thoughts on what you like to see next season? If there is one, which there is, but it's renewed.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Maeve have a bit more, a bit more of a like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's like always been my favorite character on the show, and I think they've done a lot of really interesting things with her. So it would be great to have her have a story that made a little more sense. I had a real hard time buying her motivation this season for like helping.
They really had to like twist it, didn't they, to get her to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah. I feel like they had a little bit of like a John Connor vibe with Caleb in the last episode, where like everybody was calling him sir and stuff. It reminded me a lot of Terminator.
Interesting.
So I'd be curious to see like if they're going to go a sort of like robot war route now that we know that Charlotte can make as many hosts as she wants. So I don't know. That's where I'm hoping things will go.
I almost would be upset if they didn't do robot war. I mean, that feels like the promise of the show from the start. Like, kill all human style robots. But Mia, how about you? What'd you like to see?
Yeah, that definitely seems kind of on par with what we would expect. I thought even maybe that would be what season 3 is more about, but it was really just more like Dolores. So what I would like to see, I don't know. I did say I would like to see things return to the park or return, like maybe that's just where the wars kind of happen. And I mean, that almost kind of happened in season 2 as well. But yeah, I would definitely like to see more Maeve kind of actually having her own motivations and not just being, like a puppet on a string. That seemed, I wouldn't say completely out of character, but definitely like, okay, that, that's what we're reducing her to. And definitely I want more Bernard because I loved, the duality between him and Arnold and working that whole thing out. And then it just seemed like he really got reduced to shreds as well. So I'm like, bring up the supporting cast. We can do this.
And if Dolores really is dead or whatever passes for dead when you're a robot, maybe they'll have to rely on supporting cast more.
Yeah.
But again, and we probably won't see a new season between this show being very expensive and coronavirus for, I don't know, I don't want to think about how long. So they'll have lots of time to make sure whatever they want to do is detailed.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else other final thoughts, Daniel, on Westworld in general?
Man. Well, whatever qualms I may have had with this season, it was still awesome to have such a good, thought-provoking sci-fi show on a big network like HBO. I love that as a trend, and I hope that we keep getting stuff like that. And I'll watch next season. I'll look forward to it. Give me more Bernard wrangling with his humanity. That was like my favorite stuff of this season was Bernard and Stubbs, so more of that, please, Westworld.
That would be really nice. I would love that. But Daniel, thanks for coming by. This is really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you come on other times to discuss other things because you seem like a deep resource of nerdish knowledge, and I'd like to tap it.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, we're going to go with that.
Perfect. I'll probably rethink those word choices, but, I have a long time to think about it. All right. Thanks so much for coming by, and we'll see you later.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right, everybody. We're going to do a little transition thing here. And I think, Jen, you asked up there if there were any updates on the Game of Thrones prequel show. The basic answer is no, there are not. there probably won't be anything substantial for a while. Again, with the coronavirus holding everything up, and with that show being kind of under wraps anyway. There have been some rumblings, though. Brian Cogman, an ex-Game of Thrones writer who apparently did work on that show. He just read on Twitter. He is a Twitter maniac, by the way, this guy, Mia. I looked today. He loves Twitter, which is always great for me because they always he was talking about how apparently he wrote the pilot for the show that would become the show they're making now. But because they developed another show first, they shelved his show. And then while that was happening, he signed a deal with Amazon. And so then when they took his show off the shelf, because that first pilot got, canceled, or they didn't go forward with it, now they're making his idea, but he signed with somebody else, so he's not working on it, which is too bad. He was really good. He was one of the really good creative folk with Game of Thrones. But he's working on Amazon stuff. And House of the Dragon continues to be made. And we're damn sure it's about Dance of the Dragons now. He more or less confirmed that on Twitter. We already kind of knew that, but it's now confirmed. Again, I have no idea, and we'll see that either. Probably not for a long while. Years, with an S at the end of it. Is my guess. Then again, I know they really want to have programming for HBO Max, which, by the way, comes out in days. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
Max is out
we were like, whoa, should we be doing something about this? Should we be writing about this? Do people care? What's...
I don't know. It seems like not many. I don't see a lot of press on it.
We're having a mini fire over here. We're like, okay, we're going to get some things out, and if people respond to it, we'll go with it. But if not, then, so was the fall of HBO Max.
Oh, no. I mean, Quibi is already, the fall of Quibi is already kind of happening.
Yeah.
Did you hear that Katzenberg, the guy in charge of it, was like, I blame the entire thing on the coronavirus. It's all the coronavirus's fault.
Yeah. If only there were a better way for people to be watching TV and having nothing better to do.
Yeah, exactly. Take some responsibility for your idea being dumb.
Yeah. Oh, no. To me, I'm imagining it. In my mind, Kibi is they're finally opening the door. They've got the keys to their house, and as soon as they step foot in, it's just this cliff. It's all right up.
It's one of those doors to nowhere. You open
Sorry, that was me.
I mean, I feel like a lot of folk. I mean, I don't know. It's easy to make fun of that service just because it seems so silly. But I mean, it could have blown up, and I don't think that Schadenfreude is a good emotion to indulge, usually, even though it's a natural kind of knee-jerk instinct for all of us human beings. I hope they do well. But yeah, it's always a little funny to see somebody lashing out at something that's kind of irrational. Yeah. David Harris says, HBO Max programming, all the reruns you get from coming to HBO and with Bugs Bunny cartoons added. Oh, David, you cut up. And Lisa asked, will HBO Max be worth it? From the ads, it doesn't look like they have shows and movies we can't see anywhere else. That is the question, isn't it? It's an expensive service, and we've said before, I think the programming looks pretty good, at least the older stuff they have. You know, if you want to watch Friends, you got to go there. If you want to watch the Studio Ghibli movies, you got to go there. Anything DC, there's some good stuff, but enough good stuff to justify the price tag, especially if you already have Netflix and Disney Plus. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So we'll see when it launches in this week. Is it? Or next week?
It sure is May, huh?
It definitely is May. We'll cover that probably on the next show when it happens. But before that, or rather after it, I thought we'd cover a new show that's coming to Netflix this summer. Mm-hmm. And we've known about it for a while, but they released some new glossy images of it, and I wanted to touch it because it's kind of in our wheelhouse. A show called Cursed, which is based on a graphic novel by Tom Wheeler and Frank Miller, who's a big deal in the comics industry. He did The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Begins and Sin City and stuff like that. The 300, that was his. Which is basically, what if we told the King Arthur legend, but it was all with young, sexy people?
That's one way to put it.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'll put it. It's a young adult retelling of the King Arthur legend.
There we go. That's family friendly.
There we go. We got, let's see, Catherine Langford, which as from 13 Reasons Why as Nimue, who in the Arthurian legend is the Lady of the Lake. How familiar with you, Mia, with like with King Arthur stuff are you?
Oh man, I know that King Arthur was a king.
Maybe.
There we go.
All right, so very, very familiar. I got it. I personally am, because, it's like, I don't know. I feel like if you're into Lord of the Rings and you're into Song of Ice and Fire, like, King Arthur was kind of like the granddaddy of all of that.
I get that, wizards and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's like the original medieval sword and sorcery kind of legend thing.
Yeah.
And it's so many versions. And then we have Devon Terrell as a sexy young King Arthur. Because remember, the key word here is King Arthur, but it's young people.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine, by the way. I mean, I'm okay with it. And finally, we have Gustav Sarsgaard. Not sure if he's related to the other Sarsgaards, as a sexy young Merlin. I
watched an interview with Alex. Is that Alex Skarsgård? Whoever it is. He was basically all of my brothers or whoever in our family were all related. So if you see Skarsgård, we're probably related.
Okay, that makes sense. The entire family is doing quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, so I like this kind of show. I think it's interesting because Netflix will have new content this summer.
Yeah.
I know that things are kind of petering out in some places, and it might be like a dead zone coming up in terms of new TV, but not yet. Do you think this is the right amount of medieval fantasy? Too much medieval fantasy coming on the heels of because the Netflix, by the way, is really committing to this stuff. Like they had The Witcher, they had The Last Kingdom. Now they're doing a King Arthur show called Cursed. Like they want to be the home for swords and wizards and all of these sorts of things.
I think it could
their ambitions
work. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of crossover, obviously, because it's young adult, as you said. They try to make it sexy and cool, maybe a little bit like the CW. And I think Netflix's Outer Banks has been, I know it's been doing pretty well, and it's like kind of in line with that like racy, teen sort of stuff. So if they can get it to be in line with that and hit on that like key demographic where they're like, like Catherine Langford, we watched 13 Reasons Why. So now she's pretty cool. And I think it's worth selling. Like if somebody like me, I think it appeals to somebody like me because it doesn't seem to go all in on the fantasy aspect. It's also like, and it's a little bit CW. I think they've got what it takes.
It feels a little CW. It's kind of like King Arthur meets Riverdale a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a sense I get. I haven't seen it, obviously. No one's seen it. We actually got a lot of comments on it. As David confirms, Gustav Sarsgaard apparently is Floki on Vikings. So there you go. Camelot for Millennials, says Debbie Vlesmid. Fine with.
I love that.
And I connect with this. As Julie says, when they constantly make shows with sexy young things, it always feels like they are targeted at teenagers, which turns me off. I do get that sentiment. I mean, there are great shows, I'm sure, that have like younger casts. But I mean, I don't know. There's always something that kind of feels opportunistic about it a little bit.
Mm.
Like you see, like a young woman rising out of the water all wet with a sword, and you do kind of feel like, who are they targeting with this?
Yeah.
Like your gears sort of turn.
Yeah,
and I will say, King Arthur does not have a great track record at the movies lately or on TV. There was that god-awful King Arthur movie, I think in 2017, from Guy Ritchie, I think.
Yeah.
I forget who the main guy was. Was it Charlie Hunnam? It might have been.
It might have been. I think Jude Law was in it too.
Yeah. Yes, he was the bad dude. Personally, I remember from my childhood the Merlin miniseries with Sam Neill and Miranda Richardson, which was just bomb.
Yeah.
Old word to describe that.
Yeah, I did like in high school. Me and my friends were really into the BBC Merlin.
That a sexy young Merlin show?
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Which is fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, but I think that one was That one's pretty cool. It's kind of niche to like Tumblr audiences and stuff like that. But I did like that one.
I mean, yeah, it is a venerable, probably very public domain story, so it makes sense that we get like Aruton over and over again. And just, it's always good to keep you guys appraised of upcoming fantasy stuff that's coming out. I was going to say, my favorite is the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell, which Epix is making as a show. That is such a good King Arthur thing. It's like really grounded and kind of like the Game of Thrones version of King Arthur. That would be the one that I would pick. And I say it right now, like apparently there's a Netflix King Arthur and an Epix coming out.
There's another one, isn't it? The Green Knight. It's an A24.
Oh, right.
Yeah, with Dev Patel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's coming out too.
Yeah.
That's like another, and A24 is great. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's never too late for a King Arthur revival. I think it's probably a good time right now in the wake of Game of Thrones and everything, where we're all trying to do the next big fantasy thing. So it makes sense it's coming back. I hope Cursed is good. I'm iffy about whether it will be. Jacqueline says, yes, PBC Merlin loved it. So there, we have some stuff. Julie says, that's exactly what I mean, Dan. I love young people, but I like some maturity to balance it out. And yeah, I agree. It's just, like very few stories are populated just by people who are 16 and under. Like usually there's some balance in there. And it makes me a little suspicious when it's nothing but kids. But also, I'm old, so maybe the 13-year-olds love this. So I'm not going to stop looking for it. All right. Any other thoughts on King Arthur, Mia? Have any other thoughts?
I don't have that many thoughts on King Arthur, so maybe I'll save them for another day.
Okay. We may have to get learned on it. There's a lot of literature there. There's a lot of classic French.
I'll be reading like a scroll,
Yeah. What about a bit more of a modern fantasy series? It is a Star Wars thing, but not exactly. It's the Mandalorian, the first ever live-action Star Wars show starring a grizzled bounty-hunting badass and his tiny, itty-bitty green baby sidekick baby Yoda. Great first season. I've said it before. Really, really loved it. I wanted to bring it up now because we're getting a better picture of the cast for the second season, which Disney is assured is going to come out this October on schedule. And I'm starting to get a little concerned, Mia, because they are packing it with familiar Star Wars characters.
Yeah.
So in The Mandalorian Season 2, we know that The Mandalorian's going to return with Baby Yoda, we assume. But we're also going to get Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, which we talked about before. We're also getting Tamura Morrison as Boba Fett. Boba Fett, the badass bounty hunter, face man who fell into a big sand pit in Return of the Jedi. He's coming back somehow. And I'm sure Star Wars folk can tell me how he survived and the stories from the books or whatever. Like, I don't care, man. He fell into a sand pit and he died. Like, they're going to get them out of that somehow. They're going to bring back Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica is going to be on as a character named Bo Katan Kryze from the Clone Wars show. Mm-hmm. And a couple more Clone Wars people are going to be on there as well. Now, first of all, do you recognize these folk?
I do recognize the Rebels one. I think it's Sabine Wren and Captain Rex, only because I know that there's been a lot of talk about those two people specifically. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the Clone Wars fans are really excited to see that. And I don't blame them. It's because, you've had this as a cartoon show. And just to be even for Ahsoka, the opportunity to be hey, there's going to be a live action version of this, to me feels kind of inclusive because Star Wars has always been live action, with the addition of these new animated shows. Personally, I'm really hoping that it doesn't ruin, I wouldn't say the integrity of The Mandalorian, but doesn't, kind of lift the veil of it being separate from, what we would call the Skywalker saga.
Yes. That is, I think, the small red light that's blinking in my head a bit. Mm-hmm. Wait, you're not just going to, make this the Clone Wars sequel, are you? Because this is its own show. I liked that it was its own show. My favorite thing about it was that it was its own show. And if we just bring in Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all these other people whose names I can't pronounce, like, is that just a way to kind of make it like every other Star Wars show, part of like the fabric? Because the great thing about The Mandalorian to me was that it was just so simple and pared down about these two characters doing their thing. And I didn't have to deal with like, Baby Yoda isn't Palpatine's like great grandson or whatever. And like no one's related to anybody that we know. It was all new. And I would hate if the show kind of became a little more incestuous by bringing in these other people.
I really wonder if this is like a upper management decision from them being like Kathleen Kennedy or somebody being like, wow, this was so insanely popular. We never would have imagined. Why don't we kind of use this next season as a springboard to do this spinoff and that spinoff and set up this new universe? And it's kind of like, maybe you don't need to do that. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know if that's something that, Jon Favreau or anybody else was, at a lower level, maybe not on board with, or maybe they are on board with it. But yeah, to me, it's starting to sound like a big fat corporate decision.
And that would be so rough. I mean, look, like when Disney higher ups tell you to jump, you ask how high. Like you don't fight that if you're making the show. I mean, we were talking about it on the Take the Black podcast with David Razor Harris the other night up on the Wix site right now. And I think Corey Smith did point out, a podcaster on that show, another Wick writer, great Wick writer, that in the first season, they did have like these little cameos throughout, like Werner Herzog and Amy Sedaris and Bill Burr and Apollo Creed and a couple other people. And they didn't really detract from the kind of the main story. So maybe they're just going to bring these guys in as like little flybys and little like cameos. Yeah. And that I'd be okay with, as long as they don't like consume the story with their business.
Yeah, David actually has a kind of counterpoint, so to speak, in the chat. He says, the great thing about the new characters coming on Mando Season 2 is that they're all Mandalorian and Mandalorian-adjacent characters. Bo-Katan was the last unwielder of the Darksaber before her was Sabine Wren. So that makes sense. There is it is saying that, these are, I guess at the end of the day, in one way or another, they're gonna be connected. So you may as well not complain about it and just embrace it. And I think the best case scenario, obviously, is that those little cameos don't detract from the overall feel of the show and that they enhance to it. And that's hopefully the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I hope you're right. And I will say, I did really love the first season. So I'm happy to trust them for now, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to trust where it's going. And we'll see in October if that bears fruit. And finally, Mia, you are watching a new show out on, is it TNT or TBS?
Yeah.
Okay, TNT.
TNT, good old sister station of HBO.
Really? Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it?
All in the Warner family.
Snowpiercer, which is based on the Netflix movie by Oscar-winning Parasite director Bong Joon-ho, who is really, really good. But is the show based on his movie any good?
Oh man, did you see the movie?
Oh yeah. I saw the movie. I didn't.
And that's like a 2013 movie. Okay, yeah, the show comes out May 15th. Oh gosh, what is today? I don't even know anymore. 13th. Just kidding. It comes out on the 17th. It comes out on Sunday. And it is basically the same sort of premise to the movie. You've got this train, it's like 1,001, I believe, cars long, and it's set in this kind of post-apocalyptic world where everything is frozen. And so these elite group of people, first, second, third class, and then kind of like the immigrants who snuck on the train are all aboard, and the people in the back, lower class, wants to revolt. My problem, I start off the gate with that I have a problem with this, is that it just doesn't, I feel like it doesn't kind of capture, I don't know if magic is the right word, the magic of the movie, or the originality of the movie, but the overall premise, it starts off with Daveed Diggs, who plays kind of the lead. He's the like leader of the tailies, the people in the back.
All right.
And they bring him up to the front of the train to solve a murder.
Ooh.
And so it's like, in theory, it maybe could be interesting, but it just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't take off. And it's been hard for me to kind of feel invested in this. And I don't know if it's, half of it kind of feels like maybe this isn't the right role for Daveed Diggs. Because he is kind of a lighthearted guy. You know, he played Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton. He's an amazing singer. He did a little bit of comedy in Blackish, and he's in another Apple TV Plus show. But in this, he's trying to play like, the simple part. Yeah. So all that's Daveed Diggs. And so this one, he's trying to be like a grizzled detective, and it just does not fit him. It seems like he's too good to play this role.
Ooh, that's quite an indictment.
Yeah. And so then as well, it's kind of like the world building. You've got this train, you've got endless possibilities. It hops around a lot. So we don't really get to spend too much time with one class or the other. They're just kind of like literally breezing through train cars, trying to solve a murder. And then all these other like little side plots get stacked on top of one another. So I've been binging through the whole season. I've got 2 more episodes to watch, but unfortunately it is kind of hard for me to recommend this series, especially like if you're a fan of Snowpiercer or wanted to, or curious about it.
That's unfortunate. How many episodes did you get to watch?
They gave me all 10 episodes.
Oh,
and so
really?
Far, yeah, and I'm going to be finishing up 9 and 10 today. And I usually can like binge something pretty fast if it's for review, but this one I have been dragging, and I feel like so terribly bad about it.
Okay, so that is definitely a non-recommendation. As Lisa says, the movie was fantastic. I like the idea of going beyond the movie, but just not sure how much you can squeeze out of a storyline that takes place on a train. I'll still give it a watch. That does sound like a good point. Like,
yeah.
Listen, your places you can go are pretty limited.
It is very limited.
Also, budget conscious though. Maybe cheaper to make than usual.
I think so. Yeah, all you have to worry about is the set, and every now and then you can throw in some CGI. You know, the train is going off the tracks, or it's running through the mountain. It seems that's if they need a plot device, let's shake up the train.
It's snowing real hard.
But yeah, I really had like some high hopes for it because it is an interesting sort of concept. What would be going on if the train was, in a train circling the globe and there's really no way to stop. And I think the fact that they contained themselves into just being CSI Law and Order, but extend, Law and Order has distinct 45-minute episodes, and it's over. This is kind of dragging out over the course of 10 episodes. Which I think to me is like really a little bit too drawn out for this type of show. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, well, it's airing this Sunday if you want to give it a try or prove me wrong.
It's really lame. On this Sunday on TNT.
Yeah.
TNT. I'm sorry I didn't like it more. I'm still liking Penny Dreadful City of Angels. It's still kind of slow. It's a slow burn show, but it's. Even when it's not really like barreling forward in the plot, it's really fun to watch. Like they had this amazing kind of like Pachuo Chicano dance number in the last episode where it was like a full ballroom dance thing. Like these bright colors. It looked like out of like a 1950s musical. I mean, it was great. Natalie Dormer's still killing it as the multiple roles. She's really doing a good job. And the story is compelling, although it is like a slow burner of a show, which I'm fine with. Liking that. I'm sorry I didn't like Snowpiercer more. Any other things you wanna touch on me before we sign off for the day?
No, I feel like I should announce to everybody that yesterday I was in the Central Park interview roundtable where Stanley Tucci was there. Unfortunately, you could only ask one question. Also, Daveed Diggs was in that, but you could only ask one question per journalist, and that was it. So I didn't get to ask him about cocktails or anything fun like that. But that was it was a nice interview to kind of like do something that was more cartoon comedy based. It's based on the guy, or it's from the guy who made Bob's Burgers.
Cool.
That'll be coming on Apple TV Plus if anybody has that.
Beautiful.
So that is what's been going on with me.
I mentioned that Richard, our super producer, pointed out another King Arthur thing. The kid who would be king from last year. Remember that? It was, what if King Arthur, but he was a kid in today. So that kind of went over with
whoa,
it.
Whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
you remember
I remember
it.
seeing that trailer.
Me too.
And that was it.
I don't recall it coming out, but I remember the trailer.
Yeah, it never really came out in this dimension. It just kind of...
Maybe you're like got lost in like the COVID thing. Richard liked it, but I don't know, you're not. Again, King Arthur, public domain, very easy to make things out of, so it makes sense for someone to do it. I've loved King Arthur stuff before. I love the Chronicles. Anyway, that's about our show for today, folks. If you're interested in getting more articles, extra videos that we do every month, feel free to sign up for the Wick Club. I left a link in the discussion. And if you want to ask us a question, you can do it here, obviously, or go to iTunes, leave a review with a 1,000,000-star rating, and ask us one there. We can discuss it. We might even do like an all-question episode. I thought about doing that. That could be kind of fun. Like it's just talking to people. We can put like a thing on Twitter or something, or on iTunes, or right here. If you're interested in that, let us know. Other than that, we are here every Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Winter is Coming Facebook page. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Bye.